the stylist came in and started like chopping the middle of my pillows. I hate I hate it. I don't understand it. I don't know why you do it. And whoever started it should be arrested. I'm not okay with it. And she started doing that, and she like took my, as you see, structured throws and was throwing things on sofas. And I'm like, oh no, honey, we're gonna stop this right now. And we're never gonna do that again. Lived in is one thing, but lived in like you're sloppy, it just doesn't work for me. That's not what lived in to me looks like. And that's not what I want I don't want my clients throwing blankets on furniture unless they're under it. And I don't understand the karate chop pillow thing. So for me, that's a don't.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I have something very special. I got to sit down and interview one of my long-term interior design clients, Joseph Sacco. I've been shooting for him for over 10 years now, and we pretty much sat down to talk about the craft, how he works with photographers, what he looks for, what things he needs when it comes to hiring a photographer, and just different things, the ins and outs as to the relationship between the designer and the photographer. And if that's something that you guys are interested in, this video is going to be something very informative that you guys can take away for jobs into the future if you're looking to work for a designer or already are and just want to better your craft. And for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Fraser Almeida. I'm a professional photographer based here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I specialize in luxury real estate, architecture, and interior design. So sit back and I hope you all enjoy this interview. All right, so starting off, what inspired you to become an interior designer?
I don't really think I chose to be an interior designer. I just think that was what I was supposed to do. I mean, I've done lots of different things in my life so far, and they all lead to something creative and design oriented. You know, I've done many different things in retail, and they always were, hi BB. They were always something, I would always end up in like visual merchandising, store openings. It always chose me, no matter what I did. And along the way, you know, you learn different skills that are not necessarily design oriented, but they really help with being a good designer, because I think people forget that it's not just about being creative. It's also about people management and personality management and a little bit of psychotherapy. So you just really have to be able to manage people almost equally to the design process, because if you can't sign people up to do what you envision, it's useless.
What do you look for when hiring a photographer to document your work?
It's really important for me that I could, how do I say this? I really want people that are going to view my work through photography to see it the way I intended it to be seen. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't want it to be too perfect, because as I get older, I realize that like trying to make things perfect is ridiculous. It's just not going to happen. But you want it to be really beautiful. And I realize that really beautiful and perfect are also subjective, and that's a sliding scale for different people, because most people that would ask you about me would say, I want it to be perfect, because I am OCD, but I'm reasonably OCD, I think, which probably all OCD people say. And I think that particularly when looking for other photographers, you know, like I needed to find one in Costa Rica. That was an interesting challenge because I don't know anyone in Costa Rica, number one. But the universe helped us with that. And it was really important when looking at their work to really get a feeling, like I just wanted to feel like I was in the room. And I really want people to feel like they actually went to the space and they visited it themselves, not just these very cold shots that are too wide. You know, I understand, like, we want to capture big space, but we also want to capture intimacy, because despite I don't know how to say that, but you know, despite the fact that most of the homes I work on are really large, most people still gravitate to a space. It's not like, no one wants to sit in the middle of the Taj Mahal by themselves or with their husband or wife. It's just not comfortable. And I think that capturing the intimacy within a space that is somewhat large is really important. And I will be the first to admit, I do not have the skill set to do that. I am a terrible photographer.
Are there any specific angles or compositions that best showcase your designs?
Again, I'm not a good photographer, so I don't really know how to answer that properly. But what I would say is, when you take shots of a whole room, somehow you seem to be looking through my eyes. At least that's how I feel, because there's always layers to a space. And I really enjoy how you capture it. You know, you just have a way of putting the camera where I don't know how to put the camera, but you're catching all of the stuff that I wanted you to catch, and I don't even tell you to do it. And that's what I love so much about it, is that you really, just like I feel like I'm meant to be an interior designer, you are meant to be a photographer that captures interiors, because you really do have an eye for grabbing, for me, it's like grabbing the feeling, because that's what I want people to understand and to feel. I just want them to feel how I feel about a space. It's not about a chair, it's not about a book, it's not about a rug. Yeah, they're all wonderful things, but a chair by itself is boring. A rug by itself is boring. The composition together is fantastic. And you have a really good way of capturing that.
How would you describe your design style, and or if there's a philosophy attached to that?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a philosophy attached to it. I mean, I think that what I like to do and what I call what I do is timelessly modern. I think that, you know, for me, being able to take everyday functions, the things that you interact with most in your home and in your life, and you give those functions beauty and quality, you've fixed 80% of the design solutions that you're there to achieve. Because I think often some of the things that I see when I look at other people's work, and I don't know who they are, just when you're looking at photos of things or videos or magazines, I feel like there's so much decoration. And I just, in my mind, I'm like, well, what didn't you get out of that design brief that caused you to put all of these things and all of these finishes into this room? You know, and I get that everybody has a different design philosophy and a different design style, but for me, like, I don't feel like I could ever live in a space that is so hyper designed, and I don't think that it has longevity. You know, I do realize, you know, that's why there's a million fashion designers. You know, some people like quiet luxury, some people like screaming luxury, and I get that. I just don't particularly gravitate towards or relate to maximalism. I'm not a minimalist, although I've been told by numerous Italians that for an American, I'm a minimalist, and I'm okay with that. I mean, it's not a bad word, but I don't believe in living a sparse life, but I believe in living a well-curated life. And I think that if you have too much of anything, whether it's other than money, I think it's just too much. And I don't think there's a chance to appreciate. You know, it just looks like design diarrhea, so to speak.
How involved do you like to be in the photo shoot process?
Well, see, now I have to talk about you, because with you, I don't, because I don't need to do that anymore, because we've done so many projects together that I don't even need to show up at this point, and I know that you're going to get what I want. I don't even give it a second thought. I just wait for you to send the photos. But for instance, when I was doing this project in Costa Rica, I didn't know this person, and it was really important for me to try to convey a lot of what I just said to you, but knowing that that's not really my wheelhouse. So I was a bit more, and I wasn't even there, because when they were doing the photo shoot, it just didn't work out, and we had literally a 2-day time window to get it done, so I had to do it remotely. That was a little bit stressful, because it was sort of like, all right, well, we think she's going to be great, and if she's not, this is what we're getting. And luckily, it turned out really well. But I really like repeat relationships. You know, I think that it's really nice. I don't know how much you want someone breathing down your neck. I don't particularly care for it. I would imagine you don't either. I mean, I just feel like, you know, if you hire an accountant, let him do your taxes. You hire a designer, let him design your house. If you hire a photographer, let him take the pictures.
How can photographers better understand and convey the vision of an interior designer?
Well, I think that that's through initial conversations, number one. You know, I think when you have that dialogue between the photographer and the designer, that should happen, and then you should really try to let the photographer do his thing. And what I mean by that is just what I said to you. You know, there's this story that you're trying to convey around a home, and this story that you're telling. I tell clients that all the time. Like, we're writing your book. We're not writing my book. We're writing your book, and through those chapters, there's going to be highs, lows, ups, downs, brights, darks, all those things. And that kind of stuff should be conveyed around a space. You know, pick a color palette, but play with it, just like a song. You know, if you just hit middle C on a piano all day, not much of a song. Same thing in a home. So really have that initial conversation with your photographer and just say, look, you know, this is where this started. I started with this color, this material. This is what we fell in love with first. And from there, we built this entire project around that, because I always say, you've got to fall in love with something. It doesn't matter to me whether it's a piece of wood, a piece of stone, a sofa, just we need the first word on the page. And oftentimes the first word is the most difficult to get to. And once you start writing the first sentence, the book unfolds pretty easily. And I think you just, as a photographer, try to get the story out of the designer so that you can capture it in your photographs.
Well said.
Thanks.
What advice would you give photographers wanting to work with an interior designer?
I think it would be a really good idea if you are, contacted by a designer and says, hey, I'm looking to have my projects photographed. Before you even talk about shots and all that stuff, have them walk you through a space. And just like I said, how I try to learn from my clients, not so much what they say, but what the backstory, so to speak, what I get on my own. Try to do the same thing and see how they talk about their projects and see where they get excited, because they may not even realize that they're telling you what to photograph without telling you what to photograph. And I think that's important, because you want to capture the magic, so to speak. And if you see somebody's really excited about something, if I were a good photographer, I would be like, well, okay, he was really excited when he walked through this space. I want to make sure I really capture that, so that when he sees the photos, he's going to do this. He's going to get excited just like he did in the space. So it's listening to, yes, the things that people say, but also the cues. Just really watch for smiles, excitement. Did they want to talk about that twice? Did you go through that? Just pay attention.
Well, that's already if you have a designer you're gonna, let's say, scout a property with. But what could you advise a photographer who wants to start working with interior designers? Anything you could suggest they should do to look good in a designer's eye looking for a photographer?
I mean, if you don't have any interiors in your portfolio and that's something that you want to do, nobody really wants to be the guinea pig. So I would probably suggest just go out and shoot some interiors for free, whether it's for a designer or just for the hell of it. Maybe, I'm not really sure how you'd go about doing that other than in your friends or family, unless you literally start just going to ASID's website and just call designers and say, hey, this is something I'm looking to get into. And, I think you should be honest. If you're looking to get into it and you've not yet broken that barrier, say it. And I know you're probably going to get a lot of no's, but, if you sound genuinely excited and you called me, I'd probably let you give it a try, because I want to pay it forward, number one. And number two, it's, capturing that initial excitement that someone has in their career is really hard to get back. And I think if you can grab that for someone and help them make it more magical, you're just doing someone a favor, and I think that's nice.
What influences your design choices the most? Architecture, client preferences, trends, something else?
I would say what influences me most in the subliminal, so to speak, is obviously not so much client preferences, but client needs. Because I think that I've been doing this a long time, and before this I did retail for a long time, and you really learn to read people. And it's not so much what people tell you they need or they want, it's really about what they show you, because people will, I hear things from clients all the time, and it's often the same thing, and it's never the same for every client. So it's really about not just listening to, do you like blue? Yeah, probably everybody likes blue, but that's really not important. It's more about, I like to spend time with my clients. I don't particularly think it's successful to have a remote relationship with someone that you don't know. I think it's really valuable to the client and to their project to spend time with their designer and let them really see how you live, how you function, how you move through a space, because that really tells me how I should be, designing a space for you. Are you one, I like to just really watch people. Are you really hard on things? I watch people. Do you drag a chair or do you lift it up? When you get off of a chair, do you fluff the pillow or do you just leave it there? These are things that I like to know, because I pick up on that stuff, and that tells me, okay, well, they're dragging furniture all over the house. I should probably make sure that the chairs I specify aren't very heavy. You're not fluffing the pillow, so I'm going to make sure that the furniture I specify doesn't have a lot of accessories on it, because it's not going to look nice when I'm not here. So it's the kind of stuff that you pick up, and I mean, it just comes with being, you know, a perceptive person, and also like really diving into design as a lifestyle. It's not just about, I made something pretty. Okay, well, is it pretty when you leave? You know, and is it pretty after the cleaning lady moves everything around? Because if the house is completely cluttered with beautiful things, but just too much, it's never going to look like that unless you come back every week and fluff it back up. And I just don't think that's realistic.
How do you balance aesthetics with functionality in your designs?
Well, for me, I think aesthetics should be intertwined with functionality. I think I mentioned it earlier. I think it's really important to take daily functions and make them aesthetically pleasing. You know, nowadays there's so many options for things. There's really no excuse to be performing a daily duty in an unattractive way. You know, whether it be, you know, you can buy a coffee cup anywhere. I get that. But why not buy a coffee cup that's beautiful? It feels better in your hand. It feels better against your lips. It actually, in my opinion, makes the drink you're drinking taste better. So why not perform at something, like that's something you touch every day, and for me, multiple times a day. So why not have something beautiful to look forward to every morning when you wake up waiting for you?
Have you ever entered any design competitions or magazines using professional photography?
Oh yeah, many times. Mostly in Chicago when I lived there. I mean, I was in Time magazine. I was in Chicago Home and Garden like 8 times. I was in a really amazing Italian magazine, and I was the first American designer that they ever profiled. That was really great. I was really honored to do that.
When you got into those magazines, were they specific as to the type of photos they will accept, and did you have to relay that to the photographer, or was it the photographer that it was up to them to know?
Actually, the way all of them worked was they brought their own photographer, and they brought their, I believe it was the creative director for the magazine. And in some cases, in Chicago Home and Garden, I knew the stylist really well. She's a great friend of mine. And I'm not tooting my own horn, but she was always like, I love doing your projects because I really don't do anything. Like she would just come in and, you know, maybe move a little bit here, move a little bit there. And it wasn't that she didn't like it. And that was, again, I got to learn from her. You know, what she was doing was relating to the photograph she was trying to capture. And that was something that I really did need some help with because, like I said, me and the lens are not so much friends. So it was really good to watch her style towards a lens as opposed to a space. And, you know, then of course we put it back to the way it was because real life is different than capturing a moment.
Okay, cool. How important is consistency in the way you work, your work is photographed across different projects?
I'm gonna probably not say this in a professional way, but it's really, I just want the feeling to be the same. And what I mean by that is I want you to want to really stare at the photo, and I want you to want to look at it many times, and I want you to blow it up and do all the things that one does with the photo nowadays. But I don't really copy and paste my projects. They really are, most importantly, site specific and regional. And I think that, you know, there's really important parts of a project, like I said, fulfilling those functions in an aesthetically pleasing way. That's universal no matter where in the world you go. But I do believe that, you know, certain colors work better in certain natural lights than others. So, different things feel better in different parts of the country and the world for that matter. And your spaces are different. You know, when you work on the East Coast, you tend to have a smaller space to work with, and your footprint is more compact. When you're out in the West, you get more. And if you're working abroad, in the Middle East, space is unlimited, I've learned. And in Europe, not so much. So it's really about trying to capture the feeling of all those different spaces, because I don't want the home I did in Vegas to feel like the apartment I did in London, because they're not the same. And they're never going to feel the same. You know, just the weather conditions alone and the natural light that one lives with is not the same.
What are some do's and don'ts when photographing interiors? Things that maybe you've come across throughout the years that you're like, I don't like this, or I do like this?
Well, I'm going to say that they're not necessarily photography do's and don'ts. They're just in life do's and don'ts for me. I remember when I was doing a photo shoot. It was like my first Chicago Home and Garden photo, and I remember because it traumatized me. And the stylist came in and started chopping the middle of my pillows. I hate it. I don't understand it. I don't know why you do it, and whoever started it should be arrested. I'm not okay with it. And she started doing that, and she took my, as you see, structured throws and was throwing things on sofas. And I'm like, oh, no, honey, we're going to stop this right now. And we're never going to do that again. Lived in is one thing, but lived in like you're sloppy just doesn't work for me. That's not what lived in to me looks like. And that's not what I want. I don't want my clients throwing blankets on furniture unless they're under it. And I don't understand the karate chop pillow thing. So for me, that's a don't. And I do think that a home should look like it's lived in. I don't think it should look like no one's ever stepped foot in it. And by that, I mean, if there's a book, leave a book, unless it's an inappropriate book, I guess. There should be a silent story is what I call it with clients. I always tell them, like, your people that whoever you invite into your home should be able to walk around and get a sense of who you are without you having to tell them. Your home is to me, is like your life in 3D. It's like a curated collection of your experiences and the things that you've done and the places you've been. And you should be proud to display that. If you're not, start doing some stuff that you're proud of.
And last question, what's one thing photographers can do to make your job easier and your work stand out in images?
Well, I think for me, it's really about capturing the feeling that you convey in your work. I wouldn't want you to artificially enhance my photos to make them look like they don't in real life, because that's going to convey a different feeling than I intended. And I can't produce that in real life. And my goal is that what a client, potential client, anyone that I may never meet that's seeing these things on social media, get the feeling that I got the feeling that I intended for you to get, that I get when I walk through a space. So I think that really trying to capture that feeling, that light, those conditions, I want you to feel like you've been to Las Vegas on the West Side in April with a nice sunny day. You really want people to feel what you were doing at that time, because it's really what you're selling at the end of the day, is that feeling and that composition. And you really can't explain a feeling, you just feel it. And I think that that's really important, is people getting that kind of stuff. Anybody can buy pretty things. It's not about fulfilling a shopping list.
And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. There's a lot of things I think you can take away from this. Whether you're wanting to pursue interior design or you're already in it and you just want to better your craft with maybe some of the tips and techniques that he was mentioning that we can apply to our photography. Like you said, no chop pillows, no just throwing the rugs and throws and all that kind of stuff. We just want to be more lived in, but not sloppy, right? So anyway, besides that, there's a whole bunch of other things here that I'm sure you guys can take away. So thank you everybody for sticking around and watching this video. Let me know in the comments, what did you guys find helpful in this interview that you guys can use for your own photography, for your clients and whatnot, whether you're already shooting for designers or even for just, your real estate stuff or out there. Is there anything that you guys can apply from what you heard today that you can probably use today as is in your own shoots when you're out there for your clients? So yeah, put it in the comments, let me know. I love reading them all and answering them as well. So thanks again everybody for watching this video, and remember, keep on shooting. I'll see you next time.